everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And my co-host today is you will know them from a recent conversation we just had on this very podcast with one of our directors who we had on, feeling seen by the character of Patty from his film Dinner in America. You might have also seen Snack Shack or The Bunny Game, or maybe you, like me, for months and months have been anticipating so highly Carolina Caroline. My guest today is a writer, director, a cam op, a DP, an editor, a documentarian. Adam Carter Rehmeier, what else do the people need to know about you before we get started with your extensive history in filmmaking?
I think that's the thing. I dabble in it all. I like it
Hmm.
all. So and I've worn a lot of hats in my career, and yeah, like I think you have to sort of break into the industry. You have to be flexible.
I was going to ask about that, like
Mhm.
with the jack of so many trades. Did that start out of creative desire, or did that start out of necessity of being like, listen, I want to get stuff made. I guess I got to do this
Both
myself.
both of those, I think it was good to in film school I studied cinematography and sensitometry, and I think that was a good way to get into something practical, so
Hmm.
shooting and shooting film. Of course, the industry changed almost immediately from the time I was in college. The whole sort of digital revolution was happening simultaneously. So I was really on the cusp. I went from editing on a Steenbeck,
Hmm.
to cutting on a computer, all like in a very short amount of time. So yeah, I guess I'm one of those millennial on the cusp kind of filmmakers.
When I started in my high school newspaper as
Hmm.
a freshman, I was the first class to not be doing wax paste up
See?
of the issues ever. Like we were the first one to go
Hmm.
digital, so we were right on that divide. What was
Yeah.
that first thing you said? What was the first thing you like? I can't even remember the word. The first thing you said you studied?
Oh,
Sense.
sensitometry?
What is sensitometry?
It's like, how the silver halide crystals react, with the soup and everything for developing and
Wow.
processing. So yeah, I was prepared for a film and shooting film stock,
Mhm.
and all of that. Like so the earlier films that I worked on and the earliest things that I shot, they were all on film. And then very quickly, in the early aughts, things were morphing and changing.
Mhm.
I haven't shot on film personally for anything in probably 2 decades.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's been a long time. And I'm completely happy telling stories the way that I do. Given the luxury of having, being able to say workflow wise with, producers like, yeah, it would be really cool to shoot something on film. I haven't been able to really justify it.
Sure.
Um, I think for Snack Shack, I would have loved to have shot, on film, but I'm happy with the way it turned out.
Well, to talk about your current work, my way in has to be through my perhaps favorite actor, favorite leading man, Kyle Gallner. Like of my whole life, of all time, and every movie he's in, I like him more. I
Yeah,
appreciate him more. This is
sure.
your second movie with him.
Hmm.
I wanted to hear about the creative partnership that you have with Kyle Gallner. What is the
Hmm.
syncing up? Why did you guys run it back? I want to hear about this creative relationship.
Yeah, and it all stems from me being very interested in him, and he was like kind of a top five actor that I was targeting for Dinner in America. And early on, Susan Paley Abramson, the casting director, and I had a picture of Kyle from, I believe it's from Sundance, like 2014 or 15.
Mhm.
It's like a daguerreotype or some type of tintype photo, old-timey looking thing. And you could probably find this image of him
I know I've seen
online.
that image. It's a perfect
Exactly.
medium for him.
Correct, right? And like he looks like James Dean. There's like this sort of there's sort of like this chaotic, rebellious thing
Mhm.
going on with extreme vulnerability. And when I saw that image of Kyle, I was so inspired by it that I could cast somebody like old school, like off a headshot without really even meeting them if it's the
Yeah.
right role, the right person. I've done that a couple times where I saw something in someone, and I was like, they are absolutely the essence. Connor Sherry, who played the like sort of the parallel version of me in Snack Shack, he was also another one that it was like one look in his eye. I was like, this is the kid that I'm gonna cast for this. And I could have cast Kyle off of that daguerreotype or whatever that image was. I could have cast him for Dinner in America off of that. He literally looks like the embodiment of Simon in that.
Mm,
There's so much conflict in that one image, and that's, a testament to a really great photographer doing so much in a single frame. So we had Karam Sanga, who had done a movie called The Young Kieślowski with one of the producers, Ross Putman, on Dinner in America. Um, Kyle had auditioned for The Young Kieślowski and didn't get the role. It went to this guy, Ryan Malgarini, and he played opposite Haley Lou Richardson in the film.
mm,
Um, Kyle didn't get it, but they had his email. So we sent a little love letter to Kyle, or Kara mailed something off to Kyle with the script, Dinner in America, and we didn't hear shit from Kyle. So lost cause. We went on, and as you do with casting, next letter, next thing, and
yeah.
didn't circle back for about 2 years. In the meantime, I cast the film with a different configuration of
Mm,
actors, a different Patty and a different Simon, and that film and a different DP altogether.
oh
The
wow.
DP, Hillary Sfera at the time, and Hillary got a big TV. The thing was, is the movie fell apart
Hmm.
financially. It fell apart. Hillary had this big job, a TV show that she was going to do, and so I needed to get another DP. And Tara Cromer, her agent at Gersh, was like, do you know Jean-Philippe Bernier? And I knew his work through Turbo Kid in summer of '84, and I
Mm.
really liked the tonality and the look. And I met JP,
I'm a big
and
fan of those Canadian weirdos that
yes,
the trio.
exactly.
Yes.
He's RKSS, and yeah,
RKSS, yes.
yes, JP, yeah, shot for them, and yes, exactly. So, he and I like hit it off immediately. Our love of John Hughes movies and just so many other references and stuff, just like weird '80s action and horror and stuff. Where we just hit it off really well, and that was, he was over in Bulgaria. Um, no, actually Romania, shooting The Cleansing Hour with Kyle Gallner. So while this movie fell apart and I lost my DP and I lost my cast, and Ross and Dave Hunter were still trying to put the financing together for Dinner in America so we could continue to shoot it,
Mm,
this opportunity came to replace Simon. And JP he was with Kyle, and he was like, this movie that I just got on, the financing fell apart, but this character, Simon,
mhm.
they went to like a Dead Kennedy show together in Romania. And he's like, this character,
Oh.
Simon, you got to read this thing. And Kyle was like, Dinner in America, where have I heard of that script? He went back in his email to his unread script from like his unread, email. We sent him the script like 2 years prior, and there it was sitting in his inbox. He downloaded the script and read it, and the
I
next
read you
thing,
talk about this, like it took 1,000 days for you to read
yeah,
my goddamn email, man.
yeah. And then he wants to do it. And I was like simultaneously excited, but I was also like pissed. I was like, man, this would have been nice if you liked this like 2 years ago. And like we
Yeah.
shot this, because from the time I finished the screenplay to the time that we premiered the film at Sundance,
Mhm.
6 years had elapsed. So,
Wow.
it's this business is harsh. And that's the reality. It's that in that amount of time, I was doing so many other things,
Mm.
working for other people and shooting for other people, cutting for other people. It took a really long time. And then of course we premiered the film at Sundance 2020 and then walked right into the fucking pandemic
Yep.
immediately. Just fucking face punch,
Uh-huh.
reality check, face punch. That's why we can't have nice things. I don't know. But there's some things, some shit I live by, and one of
Uh-huh.
them is it's always something,
Yeah,
right? It's always something.
for real.
It's never enough. And number three, it's when you've come to the end and you realize it is what it is. Those are the three. That's literally what I live by right there. It's always something, it's never enough, and it is what it is.
That sounds like a really good trifecta for a filmmaker,
Yeah,
honestly. Like
that's
specifically for this life. That sounds
this is the advice that
very.
I give. This is the advice and the only advice I give. The other advice is to not be a shithead. The production assistant or the receptionist at the studio, that might be the person running the studio in 15, 20 years. So,
Yes.
you may not remember them, but they will fucking remember you.
Yes.
Massively going to remember you being an asshole. So don't shit on anybody. Do not be a shithead.
Yeah.
So
Do not be an asshole on the way up unless
no.
you want to get hit by a bat on the way back
Yes,
down.
exactly. So I'm very conscious of that as I move through these spaces. And, I came from my background is in being crew. So,
Hmm.
I've been crewing when the strikes were happening and there wasn't a way to shoot. I was able to still work and operate a
Mm.
camera and still shoot a documentary for a friend. So, I guess that's how I came up. I came up wearing many hats and being able to do them all relatively well.
Well, that I feel like that, like talking about that multifaceted experience, talking about coming from the crew level to where you are now, and reading about the kind of personal or biographical, not necessarily biographical, but like personal influence elements that come into like the movies you make, like Snack Shack, like a character like Simon in Dinner in America. And I feel like with going into Oliver in Carolina, it's almost like it's like this Kyle Gallner feral man universe between those two movies. Like I'm imagining like a Gallner trilogy of just like versions of American Man made by you, Adam Carter, Rehmeier, and Kyle Gallner. And then your choice for the film that you brought, which was, I think, so fascinating. And the notion of getting at that artistic process, the personality management, the people that you meet, the people who might glom onto your art for their own self-interest, to exploit it for their own self-benefit as opposed to the benefit of the project. Tell me about Frank. You have brought Frank, and I think this is an amazing, meaty discussion piece.
Yeah, I think that Frank, and what you don't know about me that no one really knows is that for a very, very long time, from the time I'm like 14 and figuring out how to connect a boombox to a stereo to another stereo and basically make my own
Hmm.
2-track to 4-track recorder, like converting audio and doing all of the additive type of things. I'm a huge home recorder and have
Okay.
been since the time I was 14.
Okay.
And that's why, while Frank's not my favorite film in the entire world or
Sure.
anything like that, I remember the podcast is called Being Seen or
Yeah,
Feeling
yeah,
Seen.
feeling seen, feeling seen.
So when I saw Frank, I just remember there was one scene in particular in the film where everything starts to gel for the band
Hmm.
and they start to record the album for real.
Finally.
In that moment, I haven't seen a more accurate representation of what it feels like when you are in the pocket and you are recording and you're in flow state and you're recording. And it's a song in the film called Secure the Galactic Perimeter. And
Okay.
yeah, and it's just the way that it starts and the way that, sort of Scoot McNairy starts rolling the tape, who plays Don,
Hmm.
starts rolling the tape, and then what follows this sort of additive build of adding in the other instruments and the way that it feels in that moment. I just remember feeling that that was really, really accurate to my experience and what
Hmm.
that feels like. And so I thought, well, that would be something that I could share with this and sort of because there's the elements of you that get injected to your work
Mm.
that no one sees,
Right.
like sort of that side, and it's sort of an invisible side to a degree because, the song that Emily and I wrote for Dinner in America,
Hmm.
that was a really scary line in the script for the producers. In the script, it says something to the effect of, "She belts out the song, it's real savant shit," and there's no other description of it other than our takeaway makes Simon cry. It makes
Uh-huh.
it well, and that was Kyle's interpretation of it, which I didn't
Okay.
know he was going to do.
Oh,
But
wow.
but it what
And this is of course the watermelon song.
this is what became the Watermelon song. But up until that point, this wasn't some this wasn't some situation where there's a writer for Warner Music or someone that's like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to write this pop song for the movie. This is a result. Like the producers were like, well, how are we gonna get the song? Where's it going
Hmm.
to come from? And I was like, I'm going to write it with the actor playing Patty. And you know, it sounds like to them that sounds insane, you
Right.
know, because everything in the movie is hinging on the fact that that song's going to be great. It has to
Right.
be great.
It's
If
crazy
it's
when you watch something about great music or great musicians,
right,
and then like kind of a running joke of the show Empire
right,
was that like
right,
the music was always kind of bad, and this was
right.
like the biggest musical family
And
in the world.
I hate because of this is so precious to me, and it's under a microscope of scrutiny. I hate music movies that don't deliver and the music sucks. And you're like, fuck
Yes.
this movie, fuck it, this
Yeah.
sucks. So there's a lot of pressure, but like an immense amount of pressure at that point, and the director's now saying that he's going to write the song with the actor, right?
This has
And
to lock them in
right.
as a kismet pairing of people. This song is the thing that is like their star-crossed
Right.
anthem.
Emily is not a songwriter. She hadn't written a song before, right?
Hmm.
So I'm telling everybody that not only is she going to come out and she's going to sing it and do it. Well, now her background is in Broadway, and
Yeah,
she had
she's a Tony nominated stage
absolutely,
actress. Yeah.
absolutely. So I knew that going into it, but she had not written a song before. So this is going to sort of hinge on me
Hmm.
doing the other part of it because what I asked Emily to do was to hold up on like on her end to write lyrics in the style of Patty writing to Simon, right?
Hmm.
So that was her assignment before she came. I'm not a big I like to cast people knowing that they're going to be professional, they're going to do the job, and I'm not trying to inject too much.
Hmm.
But the one thing I had asked, you know, when I told her about the thing was to bring some poetry, some love poems that she
Hmm.
would be sending to Simon, which she was only too happy to do.
Oh, amazing.
And so when you know, I'd like to say that despite what the producers were like their own sort of nervousness and about this, I felt absolutely nothing at all. I knew from the start that everything leading up to that point in my
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
the work and music and stuff that I had been doing for years in the same style that we see in the movie.
Right.
This was so old hat for me. This is like what and
Yeah,
as
your
we kind of
producers don't know that, and you're
well,
just
and
like, no, in
no,
my
and
soul, I
no, yeah,
know.
and I will give you some context for it in a minute. Like, but for me, I mean, and when we actually did it, we wrote the song in 20 minutes. The song was a
Mm,
20 minutes of my life. It was, you know, sitting with Emily, strumming some chords, getting it, sort of working out the melody between the two of us, taking things that she wrote, and then sort of doubling them at times, like she wrote, you know, like a drum in the
yeah.
ear,
In my
like a
eardrum,
like
dum
yeah,
dum.
and we doubled that down, and I said let's make it more sing-songy, baby girl kind of dum dum tongue tongue. We
Yeah.
added those kind of things on it to make it more sing-songy, and then we laid down a little demo of it immediately, and then we came back to it the next day and recorded it in its entirety.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was all in. It was a 20 or 30 minute thing.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't scary. It wasn't anything. I played it for the producers. I played the demo for them the night before I recorded it,
Hmm.
and they heard it instantly. They heard the framework of it, and
Uh.
they all sat, and it was like such an uplifting thing. We were all
Yeah.
like, "Okay, this is gonna work." And you know the rest is history. But you know, which brings us to you know to Frank and sort of seeing this movie, and this was a couple years too before we shot. I shot Dinner in America in 2018.
Mhm.
So, you know, Frank, I think is maybe Sundance like 2014. It feels about.
Yeah, it's the mid
Mhm.
tens. We're in Obama era at that time.
Yeah, and yeah, like I felt that that really got it accurate, and that was all based on you know I lived up in the Hollywood Hills. I had a guest house for like 8 or 9 years up off of Barham and up there at this funky little shack. It was just it was the everything that like it was moldy and mildewy and it like animals are walking through like leave the doors open all day because there's no heat, there's no air. It's like a real like a shack.
Uh-huh.
And I had a drum set up in the living room. I have like a drum set in the living room. I had amps in the little hallway and in the kitchen. I had my microphone in the kitchen. I had keyboards over in another area, bass in another area. Like this little small, probably 800 square foot house was just hot wired to be able to
Uh-huh.
go at any time I wanted it to go. And I spent the better part of a decade writing dozens and dozens of songs,
Hmm.
like every day, like
Uh-huh.
every day. Like there's like I guess the last time I did kind of a tally, there's between like 12 and 13,000 pieces of music that I
So
was
much more
able.
than I thought you were gonna
Yes,
say.
I know,
Oh
I know,
my God.
I know. And that run goes from the time I'm 14 and I live in Nebraska and I'm
Hmm.
recording there and I'm an avid four tracker. I get a four tracker as a teen. I'm in bands and stuff like that, and I'm cranking out recordings with my friends. And then it sort of moves into the college period where, I had a really close friend that in college that he was an audio engineer and was going through that program. So he taught me a lot about recording and mic placement and building
Hmm.
out things around like one and two mic situations, like to maximize like four track recording. And I just kept going when I got out of school and I moved to California. It was handheld recorders. It was four tracks. It was a 24 track. It was mini discs. I was
Hmm.
using a wide, and I was collabing with other musicians and I was doing solo stuff by myself, but every single day like journal entry. Like so I treated that so just a whole like really like from the time I was 14 to 31, 32.
So like
I
half your
half
life,
of my
like
life
you
at that
measure it up
point
to that
are
metric.
just thousands and thousands of songs that I've created, and I started to hurt my ears. I started to, from wearing cans all the
Oh.
time, my ears started to react to like phantom sounds. Like I would just think of a frequency, or I'm like running through a song in my head because you have to realize I'm doing this every day.
Yeah.
Like I'd work a job or I'd work on set, and then I'd come home and I'd write like 8 songs in like a couple hours. I would just
Wow.
go through and bang them out one after another, like with no plan. I would start with a drum beat, and
Uh-huh.
then I'd put so I'd do like a drum machine, set a beat, then I'd lay down some guitar stuff over it, then I'd back up and do bass, then I'd go down and I'd sing, then I'd go back and I'd put some keyboard on it, or if I wanted to switch the drums from drum machine to like acoustic drums, then I would play that over the top of that, and I would just go on to the next song, and then I would
Hmm.
do the next song, and it was like a game. It was like muscle memory. I never gave it any thought. It was like complete flow state for years of being in that space, and I was able to write the same way too. So I would write short stories and I would write little scripts and things like that. I wasn't writing features or
Hmm.
anything yet. I was writing mostly prose, like short stories and stuff in around the same time. And
Hmm.
it was just this daily thing, like I never missed a day, was just
Hmm.
doing it constantly. And I had other collaborators like Rodleen Getzick, who I did the bunny game with. My friend Alex Picar, who's a drummer, would play with Alex a lot. And just, like just diligently recording every single day. And it's just like the same thing applies to writing or editing, and not losing your chops.
Hmm.
Like it was like literally just doing it every day. And so that's something that no one really knows how much time and energy I spent doing this, and it wasn't for trying to sell the music or anything.
Right.
It was all about doing the work, like
Mm.
and dedicating yourself to something. And I really my work ethic of how I direct, how I write, how I edit, how I shoot, it all stems from how I handled music and how I did that. Like, there's no other way around it. And Frank is the first movie I saw that I felt really got that type of sequence like correct from like
Uh-huh.
my experience. And that's why I wanted to talk about it.
Well, and that like, and that's it's such. I've always liked the movie, but watching it again, like I liked it. I like dug into it so much more this time even than in the previous couple occasions when I had watched it. And there's that such that like painful tension with Frank, where at the possibility of being known for the music, the possibility of people loving the music and hearing the music, when the kind of scheming, like conniving nice guy character Donald Gleason. So this is the movie. Frank is the story of a band whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because it is
Nope, no one should.
essentially unpronounceable. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not like,
yeah,
oh, I'm not going to make it. No, it's
no,
essentially unpronounceable. It ends with like four consonants.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it's Maggie Gyllenhaal and is like kind of the key like emotional cornerstone of this band, but the front man, the center of the ecosystem, the sun around which it all revolves is Frank, played by Michael Fassbender in a large paper mache head, which he has worn every day of his life without taking it off since he was a teenager.
Hmm.
And when Donald Gleason starts secretly uploading the music that they're making in this Irish hideaway that they've been at for more than a year,
Yeah.
as he says, Frank will not allow us to record until everything is perfect. And we're like
Yeah.
11 months in. Donald Gleason has offered to pour his entire nest egg into this affair so that they have the means to continue this operation. And when he learns that Donald Gleason has been surreptitiously recording, he gets very excited. And he loves the prospect of being heard and sharing this stuff. But the nearer that this engagement that they land, which is a slot at South by Southwest draws, the more the pressure of actually sharing it begins to like erode his psyche completely. And so what I wanted to like as you're talking about this, like what was the dividing line between the making of this and the sharing of this, and how is filmmaking different where that goes from being an internal art form to an external art form that you do want to share with people?
I feel like that's the conflict. And I felt like with music, for me, like very similar to Frank, he's scared in a certain way. And I don't
Mm,
know what that fear would stem from. I was in bands, I did that, but then it got to a place in my life where it was just so consuming of like my day
yeah.
that it's weird and it's hard to explain. And you're not a touring musician, you're not
Yeah.
pursuing that even. So that's just weird to want to do that. It's weird to do that and to want to do that. And
Uh-huh.
that I think that I relate to that Frank aspect of him becoming excited by the prospect of it. And I
Uh-huh.
felt that way, when we released Dinner in America. um it was the height of the pandemic. It was not a really good release. It didn't do theatrical in the way that I wanted it
Of
to.
course,
It did
yeah.
very limited theatrical, and it's a film that must be seen with other people. It must be seen with like very few films I see like you're like this needs to be seen with an audience. That is the
Mhm.
movie that sort of like Jackass or something like that. It like needs to be seen with an audience because it's you see Borat with an audience, and it's even funnier.
It's
You
really
have,
it's a movie that like I can't think of another movie that has made me feel the way that Dinner in America did, like the experience of those characters together and Patty and
yeah,
Simon, and it's like a movie that like when it ends you want to look at someone and be like, "Oh, like
yeah.
where are you at with this? Like how do you feel about these people and
Yeah.
what just happened?"
So that was part of it. And so for me, like not having that cathartic release, because you like I told you, it was 6 years from when I finished the screenplay to premiering at Sundance, only to walk into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then it was another 2 years before the film got released. We
Hmm.
did like over 100 festivals. I think the film must have won 30 or 40 awards, and no one wants to fucking release it.
I
Everyone
remember
is
hearing
so,
about it for
yes, yeah.
months and
Yep.
like all these
Yep.
wonderful notices and this
Yep.
outstanding feedback. And I
Yep.
couldn't understand. It was like, am I just
Yep.
looking in the wrong place? Where's this fucking movie?
Exactly. And so we did this sort of lackluster release to get it out into the world. And then I'm just going to say fast forward another 18, 20 months because actually 2 years fast forward. Kyle and I are in Kentucky. We're shooting Carolina, Caroline.
Hmm.
And we started getting text messages from people that were like, do you see what's going on TikTok
This
with
was
the
incredible
film?
to watch happen
Right.
online. This was
Yeah, this
incredible.
was
I
in,
saw it by the time it hit
yeah,
the Twitter side with Kyle
right.
being like
Right.
the fucking studio head
Yeah.
stumping for his movie, but this was
Yeah.
amazing to watch happen.
We had like 2 billion impressions on TikTok,
My
you know,
God.
and it was like fucking nuts.
Hmm.
And suddenly, it was crazy. And all of this was because of the song.
Hmm.
It was people were now finding the movie through the sound that was
Hmm.
being used, on TikTok and then Instagram and other places. So it was sort of this reverse engineering, and it was now the song had piqued their interest, and now they're finding out about the movie.
Hmm.
And it was like completely backwards and crazy. But now this is happening, and so it was like this moment where, I mean, at one point it went up to like number two viral on Spotify,
Wow.
world, like globally, on their, and it was crazy. And it hung out there for like a month.
Uh-huh.
And it was really, really wild. And suddenly you go from a place where, this is what I want to say. Like, when I wrote the song, I knew with Emily, I knew what it was going to be and
Mhm.
what it could be like in context of the movie,
Yeah.
like because it was correct for the movie, and I felt like it didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
But the sort of macro thing was I had been prepared to do this for a really long time, like, and so I was sort of realizing, because all of a sudden, you have a lot of people reaching out and they tell you, you talk about feeling seen. This is something that has been a theme since this movie came out or had this sort of resurgence.
Hmm.
The
Director Amy
vol
Couget on this very show picking Patty as her feeling seen character.
well, the volume of people, like at one point I was getting between 600 and 700 DMs a day
My
from people that were
God,
feeling
that is a lot.
extremely seen by Patty, feeling extremely seen by her. And it was sort of like system overload.
Hmm.
Like, how do you process that? And the sincerity of the types of things that they were writing was very personal and very touching, and so a
I
lot
mean,
of,
Patty's like an almost unbearably sincere
yeah,
presence.
yeah, and just a lot of people from the LGBTQ
Mm.
community, a lot of people, autistic, on the
Hmm.
spectrum, like writing in response to this and feeling very, very seen for the first time. And I mean, that part was super overwhelming, as somebody who could sort of short circuit like Frank himself, like like I said, like there was just a huge volume at once. And that was,
This was South by Southwest reaching out and being like, "We have a slot. Like you're going viral." Like, was this the
it
first
was,
time your music had matriculated out like that? Like,
yeah,
obviously to
because
the gargantuan degree, but like,
because
had you released music like that
nothing.
before?
I've not done it before. And, like it was something that I had been toying with for
Wow.
years. I mean, right now it's like we have 2 million monthly listeners on Spotify, which like baked in. So I actually have an outlet to do that. And Emily and I have an outlet to do that, which is just, it's wonderful. And we will make use of that. But it just was overwhelming at first because there was sort of like the shock of all of that is happening, and I don't know, it's just it was just really overwhelming.
How did, because you said it was from like 14 into your early 30s, how did your processes or your approach to your screenwriting and your filmmaking adjust when perhaps that became less of a fully eclipsing part of your time? Like how that had to have
So
affected.
it did. I actually converted slowly into more of a planner than in the earlier days, as I was transitioning from like camera operator and editor
Mhm.
into making films. I was doing all the I was wearing all of the hats. I
Yeah.
was writing it, I was directing it, I was shooting it and editing it, doing sound design, doing the score work myself, because again, I could do the score. I could
Yeah.
I could write the score. I could do that. So I was wearing all of the hats and just doing a solo filmmaker and working with talent that way. And all of the projects, the first couple, were all improv, like improvisational camera work,
Mm.
improv is, like There was very little spoken direction,
Does
that
your
type of thing.
documentary background affect that with like your
Yes,
ability to sort of work on your,
yes,
because I always like to talk to
yes.
people and who've come from documentary about how that
That
affects their narrative shooting process.
that was the single most important component to it was having worked heavily in a documentary space.
Got it.
I could train my, so I didn't have to worry about an AC. I could pull my own focus.
Hmm.
I, I was very self-sufficient. So if I could find a way to either lob up the actors or have a boom mic split between them on a C stand, I would
Wow.
do things like that frequently to just not have an additional person and just work
Yeah.
very intimately with the cast that way on my first couple of features. And so the doc thing was hugely important, and it's
Mm.
what kept everything like when I started, I was very conscious of like I did second unit for several years for other directors, like primarily like the Polish brothers. I worked for them on 4 or 5 movies, from like North Fork up into like Big Sur or Hot
Hmm.
Bot era. And uh, at some point, just wanting to working for everybody else, helping them with their dreams, but wanting to like do my own thing. And
Hmm.
what was that thing going to be? Well, yeah, I had to craft a low budget enough movie that, I did a low budget horror film called The Bunny Game
Hmm.
that I could actually go off and I could shoot it by myself. And we had a great idea and a great plan on how to get it and execute it. So it was something very doable.
Hmm.
I think that you have to start in that kind of headspace. You have to do something yourself where you
Got it.
wear all the hats to really understand the mechanics of this and take it all the way from start to the end and then beyond, like in the distribution aspect of it and
I mean,
how
that sounds like you were highly trained with that with your music, where it was you and a shack and every
yes,
available tool
yes,
building ground
yes.
up.
Yes, and I think that that's when you wear all those hats and then when you get into a position where you're finally able to delegate duties, it's very easy to do that, and it's very easy to speak a language with, a cinematographer if you are one too, an editor
Mm.
if you are one too, if you've had to be the production designer slash costumer slash gaffer slash, it's easy to have these conversations with crew, and I feel like, my crew really respects those aspects that they know that I came up through crew. So
Hmm.
those that have ambitions to do things outside of it, I'm also very supportive of that, whether it's actors or whether it's crew that wants to maybe direct or, whatever it is, right?
Well, I do want to bring up another thing that you mentioned that felt very like sort of resonant for you, which is the documentary The Devil and Daniel Johnston, which feels like such like with everything you've talked about, like feels
Yeah.
like such clear connective tissue to the story of the life of this singer-songwriter named Daniel Johnston, who was raised deeply cataclysmically Christian in West Virginia, and in his early adolescence started surfacing issues around his mental health. And that, of course, fueled an incredible creative mind and created moments of incredible downfall. And it seems like just a, in its most positive exertions of mania, it seems like was fully manifested in creation and
Yeah.
singing and songwriting and home recording and
Yeah.
skits and movies and plays. And I wanted to hear
Yeah.
about relating to something that conveys that creative process in such an intense and explosive and perhaps self-destructive way, but like the aspects that you felt like, because Frank is like a narrativized version of that, and Frank has some
Yeah.
heavy moments, and there's tragedy and there's trauma in Frank, but this is the story of a real life man going through this. So I wanted to hear what the balance that you found in
And
watching that
that
doc.
and I watched it once at the New Beverly, and it's been a movie that's always on my mind, but I don't think I
Mm,
could revisit again because it
mm,
makes me too emotional to see Daniel that way. And
mm,
I just I there's the manic side of it, I really understand, and the outputting and the need to output,
mm,
whether it's through drawing, in his case, making the covers for his artwork, but then just the music itself and the output of the music. Because I was in that space for 15, 16 years where I was locked in and outputting in that way. And I understand it very, very well.
mm.
I can't do it right now and wouldn't want to do it right now. I really feel like it's sort of in fact, one of the projects is like 120 tapes. It's a time capsule with nothing
Wow.
labeled, nothing labeled,
Whoa.
all 4 track, nothing labeled. purposely, and those were earmarked a different way on them. And I love the fact that I literally left them blank. And so, so at if it's at 120, you're getting like a third, I think, or half. No, you're getting half the speed because when you record in high speed on a 4 track, it
Uh,
doubles it, and then you use the other side of the tape
got it.
as well. So you're basically cutting your time in half. And so it's just I don't know what's on that. And I mean,
Hmm.
imagine like 120 cassettes in a project called Time Capsule
Hmm.
with no labels, no anything, but it's all 4 track. And
Hmm.
there's maybe like I think that in that project there's also like probably 50 rolls of 35 millimeter film, and then there's also like 7 or 8 Super 8 rolls that are unprocessed too. And those are all combined together. So I have really no recollection of what was on those and wanted it to be an absolute time capsule, but not have any labels on it.
Well, I guess as I come to, I really would like to just keep talking to you and talking to you. This is such a beautiful conversation, but I guess I wanted to ask what does the I guess exhibition aspect of being a filmmaker who puts things out in the world, what does that do to satisfy you as a creative, as an artist? That how is it a companion to or a contrast to the very private act of music for you at such a prolific scale? Like
I
what does each one feed for you?
I think most importantly, being able to do the festivals and the screenings keeps me engaged with the audience, who I like the audience for Dinner in America is kind of, I feel like where I cater to, I feel like I already know it. It's the best film audience in the world, the people that love that film and
Well,
that
and it
are
ended
that,
up becoming you and Kyle, and like various iterations of you and your stars. Like took it on a road show. It ended up getting interest,
yes,
and you started touring it
yes,
theatrically a couple
yes.
years after its release online.
Yeah, and we'll continue to do that, and that's something very very cool about it. Like that's not going anywhere, and now we
Mm,
can do that with it, and it's a lot of fun. But that engagement with the audience, and having, you know, Dinner in America fans are they're horror fans, they're
hmm.
Grindhouse fans,
Big time.
they're all the like cool. It's like the cool kids of cinema. Like it's basically it's catering to them and I love those are the discussions that I love, talking about Fulci films or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like they're not just interested in comedies or this or that. It's like this sort of a Grindhouse adjacent audience, which
Yeah.
I dig. It's all the punk kids. It's all it's like it's fun when I show up at the screening. So that for me has been like just having those engagements with the audience, and I really like that. I like meeting new people. I like
Mm,
going places that I haven't been and festivals I haven't been to, and meeting people. I feel like that's kind of what it's all about. That was taken away from us in the pandemic with
hmm.
like we didn't have that cathartic experience with until last year.
Hmm.
Until last year, which is it was 5 years after the movie premiered. Like that
Hmm.
is such a strange thing to have happen,
Yeah.
and there's no lack of interest in it today. And in fact, we were down at the Gardena Cinema like not too long ago, and
I'm
I
a
was sitting,
huge fan of the Gardena Cinema. That's all.
yeah,
Yeah.
go Judy, you
Go
know.
Judy. Go Judy Kim.
I'm on,
Everybody, if you're in the area, go support Judy Kim in the Gardena Cinema.
yeah, I'm pro Judy all the way. Anyway, I was sitting there and there was a couple that were a few rows back, and I heard them whispering. They were doing all the lines of the movie. They knew the whole movie. They were doing them back and forth and quoting it, and it's like that kind of stuff. I like meeting people and going to see especially that film. But like I think for what I do, the reward at the end is that you each time you take something out into the world, you get
Mhm.
to have like a little tour with it and do screenings and stuff. It's a lot of fun. It makes all the long nights in the edit bay, worth it.
Well, I guess for my last question, then I will say I will touch on Carolina one more time because this feels like you're this is the it's almost like a Bonnie and Clyde love story. It's romance, it's crime, it's
Yeah.
two devastatingly beautiful lead actors. This feels like you're kind of like to date your movie star movie. And I wanted to hear about making your movie star movie with your guy, the I mean appreciated and yet still underappreciated Kyle Gallner and
Yes.
woman of the moment genre maven. I think one of my most dynamic women acting today in Samara Weaving.
Yeah. I mean, they were electric together. I knew like from the rip that it was going to be great. Like Sam wanted to work with Kyle, Kyle wanted to work with Sam. She was a huge fan of Dinner in America. Like me,
She
Kyle
has
was a huge
great taste. She has great
It's a great
taste.
case. Yeah, and I had seen her a few years ago in my buddy Tyler's movie, Ready or Not,
Mhm.
and I thought she was really great in that, and I love that film. And I actually saw the second one at South by this year, and I loved it as well. I
Mhm.
thought it was even better than the first one. And I love Catherine Newton and Elijah Wood
Them
was
as a pair, her and Catherine Newton as a pair, that was
I
an
know.
excellent team up.
It really was, and the whole black wedding thing, I really dug at the end. This is great. But yeah, like they were a dream come true, like as you would imagine, like two very professional actors that come very prepped and ready to play, and that's the big thing, the big ticket item is that I require is that you know your lines and you come ready to play. Outside of that, I don't try to like force too much, like. You know, yeah, I'm a parachute if somebody needs me to be a
Mm.
parachute. But most of the time, they kind of have an idea of what they want to do, and like again, this is just a vibe and a feeling thing.
Yeah.
I treat when we're making it, it's like to me, it's jazz. It's like
All
jazz
right.
musicians making stuff, and so this person's trying this person's like this. I get to be Miles Davis in my job and be like, down on the piano, up with the drums, like that type of thing, but it's so collaborative and special, and each project is its own kind of set of problem solving, and whether it's there's always something. I told you, it's always
There's
something.
always
It's
something.
always something, and most of it's time and or money is
Uh-huh.
the something that the biggest something is always time and or money. So, with this film, it was 25 days, almost 100 locations, which is just absolutely batshit bonkers.
That
Like
is
I'm thinking.
mind-boggling. You've thrown out numbers I couldn't have conceived of in this conversation.
It's not a good look in the middle of the night when you're waking up in like cold sweats and you're freaking out and you're thinking you're waking up thinking you're in the back of a car, and I mean, like whatever it is, like you're about to get to location, and yeah, just it was a really, really painful shoot. I'm not gonna lie. It may not look like it on screen,
It doesn't.
but I guarantee you I was pushed to my fucking limits, like making this movie, like more so than any film I've ever been. And just with time. I mean, even Samara just like in the chair, like that's 2 hours, maybe two and a half in the morning for tattoo removal and
Uh-huh.
hair and
Yeah,
makeup. And
making her that Farrah Fawcett feathering.
I mean, I look, girl, I love the feathering, but the practical side of me is if you're in the chair for 2.5 hours every day, and that you do that for 5 days straight, how much time is that?
That's
That's
more than 10 hours.
that's more than 10 hours, and that's a whole work day. And so basically you're saying that, you did a 25-day movie. And I mean, obviously that all of this is baked into it.
Yeah,
Some of it
yeah.
is baked into your day, but there is no scene work in the movie without Samara.
I
She's
was
in
gonna say
every
she's
single
in
scene.
like every frame of this
Every scene.
movie.
So there's not like some magic scene where with Oliver and we don't need Sam for half a day.
Yeah.
Like she's in that chair. Like you're so that was to me, that was very stressful too, because you have
Hmm.
times where you're at like the fancy brown hotel location where they have the little fancy dinner where he's like,
Hmm.
where he's rocks tumbling down the mountain, baby, like that
Yeah.
whole thing, where he tells her that. That was in like one of the nicest restaurants in Louisville in this hotel, and we have like 4 hours to shoot it.
Right.
And that was a day where she was really glammed up,
Yeah.
and it was beyond feathering. The hair was up, and it was like Yeah, I'd take the feathering day over the like total glam day because
Over the red
I
carpet day.
it was like 3 hours in the chair. So we had like an hour left to shoot the scene before we had to get out and go up to the Muhammad Ali suite and shoot more stuff. And so, yeah, it was a pressure cooker. There's never, it's always something, but like clearly there's never enough time on any
Yes.
motion picture.
Well, I'm so happy. I need you to know that for all of those hours logged into that prep, you created iconic pinup portraits of Samara throughout this movie that I think just so much into sort of the mythic presence of Oliver and Caroline. And I want you to know that it pays off on screen. I really loved it, and I loved getting to have this conversation with you. And thank you so much for coming and talking to me about all this stuff. It's been so great to have you on. I'm such a fan of your movies.
Appreciate you. Well, I couldn't have done it without Annie and Hannah, who do all the costume design.
All
They're
right.
wonderful, wonderful costume design. Francesca Palumbo, who does my production design, amazing, amazing woman, and the most like just fierce, dedicated, badass bitch that's gonna get it done. And just I love her so much. And Jean-Philippe Bernier, my DP, Justin Crone, who
All
edited the
right.
film, and curated the entirety of the soundtrack
Oh, wow.
himself. He did the entire soundtrack himself. Um, and Chris Bear, who did the score of the movie, that really beautiful, pulsy,
Hmm.
electronic, synthy score. And Danny McCoy, who does sound. Josh Kiros, who's our gimbal operator, and Richie Trimble, who did second unit. Those guys pulled off miracles on a day. We had a day and a half allocated to shoot all of those car montage interiors, both night, the exteriors, the night ones, the ones over the train tracks, the Carolina ones, the
Uh-huh.
1.5 working days to pull all of those things off. Richie and Josh had a fucking shotgun pulled on them by some crazed farmer. Like,
My God.
it was a feat. So yeah, I my crew and AD Andy Coffing, who Andy I hadn't worked with for probably 20 years. I met him when I first started in the business working for the Polish brothers, and Andy is one of my favorite ADs of all time. He's such a bulldog, and just you can't you can't make a great film without a great AD. Um, so yeah, do a couple
Thank you.
plugs.
Thank you for the shouts out to the team on that. I really do
Uh,
appreciate that. And
yeah,
that is essential to this conversation. So again,
yeah.
thank
Uh,
you. Oh yes.
Rick Saliga,
Okay.
my first AC. Sorry, I forgot one
No.
guy who's the guy that keeps everything sharp. Rick Saliga, my first AC. He's the best. So
You can see all of those hours in beauty for Samara weaving because of Rick Saliga.
yes, absolutely. Rick is a giant part of that. And yeah, you need to treat your first AC differently because
All right.
they really are the backbone of keeping things moving smooth, really.
Maximum Fun.
A worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.